Tonight we've some ways to entertain our holiday, and we've also talked to about what the holiday means to them. But tonight, I decided to take a more personal look into the 4th of July because I believe that in times like these, we should never take the American freedoms for granted. Here's my report. All the hustle and bustle of our everyday lives, we're filled with priorities. You know them, getting to work on time, work itself, and the meetings. Well, you get the idea. But stop and appreciate where we live and what it is. Enjoy the taking it all for granted. We all do it. For a few minutes, let's remember what it's all about today. Our freedom wasn't given to us. We had to earn it by fighting for what we believed in through wars. The Revolutionary War earned us life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as we gained our independence from Great Britain. And time again, we fought so that we can live in a democracy, sometimes even against our own brothers, like the Civil War. And although none of the original patriots are still around to hear their stories of upholding the honor of America, there are still thousands of patriotic heroes alive today, and many of them exist in our own lives. One hero in my life is my grandfather. Michael Esposito has been telling me about his experiences in the war since I was a little boy. So this 4th of July, I thought that I would find out what Independence Day meant to him.
Years ago, 4th of July meant, you know, like fireworks and all that. And when you were a child, you never knew, you know, the real meaning of it. And then later on, parades and all that. And then you start realizing, reading in history, what the 4th of July meant, how these people got together, these congressmen and senators and statesmen, and you really have to admire them after you find out later what they went through to really try to secede from the British rule. But when you're in combat, there's no such a thing as 4th of July or May 30th or Christmas or Easter, you know. I'll never forget the one night we got bombed. It was Christmas Eve, and they come over, and one guy was going damn disrespectful, you know. But you know, you were in a combat area, and you should expect that.
He enlisted in the U.S. Army Air Force in 1942 at the age of 19, and following training as an aerial gunner, was transferred to Saipan in the Asiatic Theater following the bombing of Pearl Harbor.
We were in California phase training, and I'll never forget when we took this plane, took off, and went over a Golden Gate Bridge, and definitely you could hear a pin drop in the plane. Everything was quiet, everybody, I guess, wondering, will I ever get back?
Esposito, or Granddad as I know him, was assigned to a B-24 Liberator bomber named the Liberty Bell, in which he completed 40 combat flying missions, and from that service came the medals, like the Good Conduct Decoration Medal, the Campaign Service Medal for the Asiatic Pacific Campaign with 4 stars, the World War II Victory Medal, Campaign Service Medal for the American Campaign, the Air Medal with 2 oak leaf clusters, which means he earned it 3 different times. And perhaps the greatest moment in his life was the general presented him with the Distinguished Flying Cross, which only goes to soldiers who fly numerous missions against heavily defended enemy bases, which are usually entirely water, and the target itself is only a pinpoint island. But the skill and unwavering determination of those soldiers is invaluable to aiding the advance of the American forces. And with that, Granddad has become, indeed, one decorated soldier.
I'll never forget the first combat mission. You know, we went up to bomb Iwo Jima. They never expected us to come up there, because when we landed on Saipan, there was fighting still going on, and we loaded bombs that same night and then went up the next morning, and we went in at low altitude, and they had planes all over the place. You talk about teamwork. It's unbelievable when, you know, people are together. They're better than brothers when it comes to working together, you know, as a team. Just knowing that either you work together or you don't come back. They stopped our plane as we were going down, ready to get on a runway to take off. And a lieutenant Jeep pulls up, and I opened the bottom hatch, and he took all the gear in. We got all the gear, you know. And I said, I thought you were supposed to fly with. Lieutenant Painter's crew. And he said, yeah, that's all right. Help me with my gear, the big cameras, you know. So we set the camera up while we were going down, and when we went up there, Lieutenant Painter's crew got shot down. And I talked to the chaplain, and, you know, he was a Catholic, and we'd go in his tent. The chaplain would say a mass or something. And the chaplain told us that he woke him up about 2:30 in the morning and asked the chaplain to give him confession in that. And you know what this lieutenant told me? He said, I had a premonition. That's why I left their crew and came with you people. When I heard that, I said, you have a premonition about us? No. Because I'll stay on the ground also.
Now, just like I said in the beginning of this story, it's all right to take the freedoms that we enjoy every day for granted once in a while, but that's only because of the brave men and women who have fought so hard in the past to protect those freedoms. But today, on our nation's birthday, we should all take a moment away from our very busy schedules of cookouts and fireworks to remember those brave men and women, those freedoms, and our country, and thank God for each one of them. We should also praise the dead veterans who have fought so hard to make sure we have those freedoms every day. But more importantly, salute the living heroes that we see and know every day in our lives. Happy birthday, America, from your local News 13.
This has been a Samson production and Service Electric Cablevision presentation.
Yeah, they want to. was one of my sergeants. Him and Colonel O'Donnell, both of them. They were tank commanders. Nick Walzer, and then the unit went somewhere else, and I ended up in the cabin. Nice view. You want to do some there or what? Huh?
Yeah, you want me to pull the chair?
George, don't you remember when you stopped me one day?
No.
I was coming home from Scranton late at night on 81. It was quiet in them. You were, and I'll never forget, it was getting late, and you know, it was pretty late at night. I was getting sleepy. I said, let me, nothing, and all of a sudden, you pull up behind me and you come out, and you told me I was going fast and all that. Where are you coming from? I told him. All of a sudden, he said, well, this time I'll give you a warning. He said, but next time if I ever catch you, pray to God that I never. Who said that? Pray to God that I'd never catch you again.
George, you said that?
I don't believe that.
Yeah, he let me get away with it.
Pray to God that I never catch you again.
Oh, well, hey,
Wait,
I was happy with a warning.
Oh, yeah.
You want your bozo nose here?
Yeah, might as well.
Yeah,
Everything
I was
else
in, I had my uniform on and all.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, I was coming from a meeting in Scranton with the U.S. Army school, you know.
You hear that, though? Yeah, Nick Walzer was one of his sergeants.
Nick Walzer and Connie O'Donnell. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nick was
Trained them both.
tank commander.
So he said he'll get a real kick out of seeing this one on 4th of July, won't he, George?
Yeah.
Word.
Marchetti was one of my troopers.
Yeah, Ronnie. Ronnie was in there, too. That's Ronnie was surprised when I told him who my grandfather was. He was like, get out of here.
Okay.
Okay. I'm just going to start right up. I'll hold this on, but just talk to me.
Yeah.
Like, talk to me. Yeah, because he's at a good angle. So if you want to turn, just turn a little bit. There you go. Yeah, just tell me about the 4th of July. I mean, did it used to mean different to you than it did after the war?
Well, years ago, 4th of July meant, you know, like fireworks and all that. And when you were a child, you never knew, you know, the real meaning of it. And then later on, parades and all that. And then you start realizing, reading in history, what the 4th of July meant, how these people got together, these congressmen and senators and statesmen, and you really have to admire them after you find out later what they went through to really try to secede from the British rule. But anyway, later on now, you get in the service, you go through all the fighting and all that, and then you turn around and you come back, and I'll tell you, you really get the feeling to say, well, people are condemning this country, they're doing this, burning flags and all that, and you wonder why, because when you get overseas and find out how other people are living and see the freedoms we have because of these guys on the 4th of July, I mean, as you get older, you start to realize, hey, buddy, what am I doing? this country is the best in the world. There's nobody like, I don't care where you go, England, Canada, no matter. All the countries that are supposed to be, democracies, no way. They can't compete. Yet, we're having a lot of problems now, with, like you said, people burning flags, a lot of liberal stuff going on that they don't care about the country. They just want to take instead of, trying to give to the country.
Right.
I mean, you don't mind, like one guy said, hey, my taxes, I'm paying enormous taxes. But, buddy, I'd rather pay these taxes than be over there with,
Sure.
what them people are going through.
So now, when you were fighting, obviously you fought during the 4th of July. Did you ever think about it and say, this is the 4th of July, now everybody back home, people are putting up fireworks and stuff like that, and we're out here fighting for that independence that they're celebrating?
Well, actually, when you were over there the 4th of July, if you were in a garrison outfit in the States or anywhere behind the lines, they'd have a big parade and a ceremony, and, to honor the 4th. But when you're in combat, there's no such a thing as 4th of July or May 30th or Christmas or Easter, I'll never forget the one night we got bombed. It was Christmas Eve, and they come over, and one guy was going damn disrespectful, But, it was, you were in a combat area, and you should expect that. But like you said, when you get back, overseas, it was, every day was the same. You just worried about it. You went on a combat mission if you were going to get back, loading bombs. Your mind was always occupied by the job you were doing, and you had no time to think of anything but working. Going one way with the bomb, you were working for Uncle Sam.
Yeah.
Coming back, you were working for yourself, self-preservation, and that's how you try to be a perfectionist, keep the enemy away from you and all that, so you could live and come back to this.
What about when you left training and you knew you were going off to the Pacific, the Asiatic Pacific?
Well,
what do you think about that?
We were in California phase training, and I'll never forget when we took this plane, took off, and went over a Golden Gate Bridge, and definitely you could hear a pin drop in the plane. Everything was quiet. Everybody, I guess, wondering, will I ever get back? Yeah. And we didn't know where we were going, and after 1 hour, we opened one envelope, a sealed envelope, and it said land at Hickam Field, then another Wheeler Field, until actually the last letter we had to land at Wheeler Field, which is right adjacent to Hickam Field. And when I got there, I could see the devastation. All the buildings were all bombed out, and Pearl Harbor, seeing the sunken, rusted ships. It was devastated, although the island was beautiful.
Right.
And that's why I keep going back. In fact, I'm going back this year in October, and I want to go to Punch Bowl and visit all the names anyway. The graves, well, they were shot down in the ocean, but all the names are there, just like in Washington on the Vietnam Memorial. But it's a shame when I will go on to see the Arizona, and you'll be surprised the reverence on there, that the people are there, and you look down and you see the ship is right under you, and there's over 1,000 servicemen in there, and it really takes you.
What about the fact that you were a gunner? You're a gunner.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit about some of the time flying as a gunner.
Well, I don't know how the service worked it, but I used to get sick on a merry-go-round, or when I rode in a car for a little too long, in the back. And so they put me up in a plane. And I used to get sick for a while in training. And the flight surgeon used to always say, don't worry, Espo. You'll get over it. That's all in your mind. And I'll never forget the first combat mission. We went up to bomb Iwo Jima. They never expected us to come up there, because when we landed on Saipan, there was fighting still going on. And we loaded bombs that same night and then went up the next morning, and we went in at low altitude, and they had planes all over the place. But it was more like an experience you felt. And then as the missions kept going on and we kept losing a lot of our friends, then you start to realize who's next, and right down the line. But eventually you talk about teamwork. It's unbelievable when, you know, people are together. They're better than brothers when it comes to working together, you know, as a team. Just knowing that either you work together or you don't come back. I mean, that's the bottom line, you know. But
Right.
it was nice that when I go to the Punch Bowl, I go there, and one day I stopped at this grave. I told my buddy, stop, and I got out, and there was Ernie Pyle's grave. So I started taking a picture, and somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, is that picture worth $50? I looked at it. It was a custodian there. I said, well, no, you know, I don't. He said, well, you're not supposed to have a car here. You're supposed to walk. I'm sorry, sir. And I jumped in the car. We took off, but I got the picture of Ernie Pyle's grave. Oh, that's the most beautiful cemetery in the world. Fresh flowers on every grave all the time.
Well, I mean, it's just fitting that you're talking about that, because obviously not everybody can come back alive. You had to have a lot of friends that you met that didn't make it back.
We lost 50% of our squadron, plus some replacements. There was not of the original squadron. We didn't. There was 2 or 3 of us, maybe 4 at the most, come back, you know, intact, you know.
Do you stop and think about that, or you just kind of have to forget it, put it behind you, and keep going?
Well, every now and then, like when you, like 30th and that, you know, you go to the cemetery, and 4th of July and different holidays. And now and then when I go to church, I say a little prayer for all you guys. And next year we're having the bombardment group, the 30th Bomb Group. We're having our last reunion. I never went to any because they were always in California, but they're having it in Ohio, so we're going there just to meet some of the people that you know, we flew with and fought with and all that.
What about during when you're actually serving the time, and you know, I mean, you're flying up and all those planes, all the Liberators going up at once, and I know I looked at the picture last night, Hell on Earth, all those guys that you knew, and you'd see them every day going around the barracks, and then all of a sudden they're not there. What is
Around
that?
the tents.
Around the tents.
We didn't have barracks. Yeah, well, that's what I said. I'll never forget the 37th mission. They raised it to 40. This Joe Bongiorno, he was from Brooklyn. He come to me the night before, and he said he was blowing his top. Boy, they're raising the missions, Mike, and this and that, you know. And we were crying the blues. So the next morning, we were up at 3, and we went down to the flight line, loaded our gear, and we were ready to take off, and they stopped our plane as we were going down, ready to get on a runway to take off. And a lieutenant comes, Jeep pulls up, and I opened the bottom hatch, and he took all the gear in. We got all the gear, you know. And I said, I thought you were supposed to fly with Lieutenant Painter's crew. And he said, yeah, that's all right. Help me with my gear, the big cameras, you know. So we set the camera up while we were going down, and when we went up there, Lieutenant Painter's crew got shot down. And I talked to the chaplain, and you know, he was a Catholic, and we'd go in his tent, the chaplain would say a mass or something. And the chaplain told us that he woke him up about 2:30 in the morning and asked the chaplain to give him confession in that. And you know what this lieutenant told me? He said, Mike, he said, I had a premonition. That's why I left their crew and came with you people. When I heard that, I said, well, if you have a premonition about us, let me know. Because I'll stay on the ground also. But at that time, flying was voluntary. You didn't have to fly. If you felt, you know, we had guys that cowered out. I'll never forget one guy, a cameraman, came up with us our second mission, and we lost two crews that day, got shot down, our best friend. And he froze. He wouldn't move, and I ran out of ammunition because I was flying on a Purple Heart corner, we call it, wide open, protecting the inside. And I'm firing, I ran out of ammo, and I told him, I said, Virgil, give me some ammo. We had a box. He had his head in his hand, and his face down in his arms, and he wouldn't. We had to lift him out of the way, right there, and then the right waist gunner or the left, he'd come over and he'd start feeding ammo. You know, boy, when they see a guns out, they come in. We had 2 holes in one of our air scoops in one of the engines
Yeah.
because they were coming in. They knew, but then after I started a fire again, then kept them away. But we lift him out. They came with the ambulance and they held the stretcher down, and they picked him up and sat him in that position. He was froze like that. But like I said, he never flew again.
Yeah.
But anytime you wanted to quit flying at that time, now it's mandatory whether you know what I mean.
Yeah. Tell you what, I know we're done.
Lights.
What's that?
I'm getting the lights.
No, we're done.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Good.
I
Okay.
got everything I need.